The massive space station floated in the darkness between two star systems. Kepler Station was built for one purpose: to be neutral ground where different alien species could meet and talk. Today, it held the most important peace talks in 100 years. Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked through the curved hallways of the station. Her black hair was pulled back in a simple style, and she wore the dark blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic service. She carried a thick folder of papers and data files. Other diplomats might use fancy holographic displays, but Elena preferred old-fashioned documents she could touch and mark up with a pen. The main conference room was huge. The ceiling stretched up 3 stories high, and windows showed the stars outside. Around the oval table sat representatives from dozens of worlds. Most of them looked nothing like humans. At one end of the table sat General Caxthul of the Zephyrian Empire. His body was covered in crystal-like plates that clicked when he moved. His species lived for thousands of years, and he had personally fought in wars older than human civilization. His 4 eyes glowed with a cold blue light as he studied the other delegates. Across from him sat war leader Velnari of the Corvani Federation. She had no body that Elena could see, just a shimmering energy field contained in a special suit. The Corvani were pure thought, telepathic beings who considered physical bodies to be primitive. Velnari's translated voice came from speakers built into her containment suit. Chairman Thexvalar sat at the head of the table. He was from the Altarian Council, one of the oldest species in the galaxy. His green skin was wrinkled with age, and his 3 arms moved constantly as he spoke. Each of his hands had 7 fingers that could bend in ways human fingers could not. Elena took her seat between 2 smaller alien delegates. One was from a world of traders, the other represented a group of farming colonies. These were the minor species, worlds that the big powers mostly ignored. "Let us begin," Chairman Thexvalar announced. His voice was deep and commanding. "The Zephyrian Empire and the Corvani Federation have been at war for 112 standard years. This conflict has torn apart entire sectors of space. Billions have died. Trade routes have been destroyed. It must end." General Caxthul's crystal plates clicked as he shifted in his chair. "The Corvani started this war when they invaded the Rigel system. That system has belonged to the Zephyrian Empire for 2,000 years. Your memory fails, General." War leader Velnari's translated voice was cold and mechanical. "The Rigel system was empty when your species was still learning to use fire. The Corvani Federation developed those worlds through pure intellectual effort. We transformed dead rocks into garden worlds using our superior minds." "Superior?" Caxthul laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "You gasbag creatures have no understanding of true strength. You hide behind your energy fields because you are too weak to exist in the real world." "Please," Chairman Thexvalar raised one of his hands. "We are here to find peace, not to trade insults. Each side has presented their demands. Now we must find a solution that both can accept." Elena opened her folder and stood up. "If I may, Chairman, I have studied both sides' positions. I believe there is a path forward that addresses the core concerns of both the Zephyrian Empire and the Corvani Federation." Several aliens around the table made sounds that Elena recognized as laughter. General Caxthul's 4 eyes focused on her. "The human wishes to speak? How amusing. Your species has existed for what, a few thousand years? You have been part of galactic civilization for barely 150 years. What could you possibly understand about a conflict between ancient powers?" Elena kept her voice calm and steady. "Sometimes a fresh perspective can see solutions that others miss. If you would allow me to present my proposal," War leader Velnari interrupted. "The human emotional responses are interfering with logical analysis. Their primitive neural patterns cannot process the complexity of this situation. Perhaps they should observe quietly and learn." "Indeed," agreed a delegate from the hegemony worlds. "This matter requires wisdom that comes from age and experience. The humans mean well, but this is beyond their understanding." Elena looked around the table. She saw the same expression on every alien face, polite dismissal mixed with barely hidden contempt. They saw humans as useful, but limited. Good enough for basic tasks, but not capable of real diplomacy or complex thinking. She had seen this attitude many times in the past 5 years. When human ships helped evacuate civilians from war zones, the aliens thanked them, but acted like they were doing simple charity work. When human negotiators helped settle trade disputes between smaller worlds, the major powers treated it like children playing at being adults. Very well, Elena said quietly. She closed her folder and picked up her papers. I can see that my perspective is not wanted here. Chairman Thexvalor waved one of his hands dismissively. Now, Ambassador Vasquez, there is no need to be upset. Perhaps you could assist with some of the smaller details later. Refugee transport schedules, food distribution, that sort of thing. Leave the complex negotiations to those who have experience with such matters. Elena stood up and gathered all her materials. The other delegates watched her with the kind of patience adults show to a child having a tantrum. They expected her to sit back down and accept her place. I understand perfectly, Chairman, Elena said. Her voice was still calm, but something in her tone made a few of the aliens look at her more carefully. Humanity has always been willing to help where we can. We have spent the last 10 years trying to find ways to end this war. We have lost good people serving as peacekeepers in neutral zones. We have spent billions of credits on refugee aid and medical supplies. She paused and looked directly at Chairman Thexvalor. But clearly, our help is not valued or wanted. Therefore, I am formally announcing that humanity is withdrawing from these negotiations. We are also withdrawing from all related peacekeeping efforts, trade mediation services, and conflict resolution activities. The room fell silent. General Caxthul's crystal plates stopped clicking. War Leader Vilnari's energy field flickered. You cannot be serious, Chairman Thexvalor said. This is a matter affecting the entire galaxy. Yes, it is, Elena agreed. And you have made it clear that humanity's contribution is worthless, so we will stop wasting everyone's time. She walked toward the door, her footsteps echoing in the large room. Ambassador, wait, called out one of the smaller delegates, the farming world representative. What about the grain shipments, the refugee camps, the medical aid? Elena paused at the door and looked back. Those programs were run through human organizations. I suggest you contact other species for assistance. She looked at Chairman Thexvalor one more time. I'm sure your ancient wisdom will provide much better solutions than our primitive human thinking ever could. The door closed behind her with a soft hiss. The alien sat in silence for a long moment. Well, Chairman Thexvalor finally said, where were we? Ah yes, the territorial disputes. General Caxthul, your opening position. But somehow the negotiations felt different now. Empty. Like an important voice had just been silenced. None of them realized that in 96 hours the first crisis would hit, and in the months to come, they would learn exactly what humanity's worthless contribution had actually been worth. 4 days after Ambassador Vasquez left Kepler Station, the first emergency signal reached the Galactic Council. It came from the Neutral Transit Corridor, a stretch of space that both the Zephyrian Empire and Corvani Federation had agreed to keep peaceful. This corridor was the main highway between the inner and outer rim worlds, used by thousands of cargo ships every day. The signal was brief and panicked. Zephyrian battlecruiser attacking Federation transport convoy. Repeat, neutrality has been broken. Requesting immediate assistance. Chairman Thexvalor stared at the message display in his office aboard Kepler Station. This made no sense. The neutral transit corridor had been peaceful for 15 years. Both sides had too much to lose by fighting there. He opened a communication channel to General Caxthul. The crystal-plated alien appeared on his screen, looking irritated. General, I have reports of your forces attacking Corvani ships in the neutral corridor. This violates our agreements. My forces? Caxthul's 4 eyes flashed with anger. Your information is wrong, Chairman. We have strict orders to avoid that sector. But if Corvani ships are there, they are probably smuggling weapons to rebel groups in our territory. Before Thexvalor could respond, another alert came through. This one was from a Corvani source. Federation patrol ship reports Zephyrian cargo vessels dumping toxic waste in neutral space. This is clearly a deliberate act of environmental warfare. Within hours, more incidents erupted across the corridor. Ships from both sides encountered each other and immediately assumed hostile intent. Without anyone to mediate or investigate, small misunderstandings turned into firefights. By the end of the day, 7 ships had been destroyed and the corridor was effectively a war zone. Trade Captain Mortax of the Independent Merchant Guild called an emergency meeting with his board of directors. His species looked like large, furry bears, but his mind was sharp when it came to business. "The numbers are bad," he told his assembled colleagues. "We've lost 40% of our shipping routes in just 1 week. The neutral corridor was our most profitable lane, and now it's completely unusable." "What about alternative routes?" asked one of the board members. "That's the problem," Mortax brought up a star map. "Most of our backup routes depend on agreements with smaller worlds. And those agreements were negotiated by human mediators. Without the humans involved, these little worlds don't trust us anymore." Board member Velisk, a thin, blue-skinned alien, looked confused. "The humans? But they were just translators and clerks. Surely we can handle simple trade negotiations ourselves." Mortax's furry face showed an expression of frustration. "I thought so too. But listen to this." He played a recorded message. A squeaky alien voice filled the room. "The Deltan Agricultural Consortium regrets to inform the Merchant Guild that all grain shipments are suspended. The terms of our agreement were negotiated in good faith with our human partners. Since the humans are no longer involved, we must assume that the larger species no longer respect our sovereignty or our customs. Please contact us again when you are prepared to treat us as equals." "We can negotiate new terms," Velisk suggested. "How hard can it be to deal with farmers?" Mortax laughed bitterly. "I tried. Do you know what the Deltans eat? Do you know their religious calendar? Do you know which day of their week is considered unlucky for business?" The humans knew all of this. They spent years learning about hundreds of different cultures. We just assumed it didn't matter. Similar problems were emerging across the galaxy. The silicon-based architects who built orbital platforms around gas giants suddenly refused to work with the floater species. Their partnership had provided energy to dozens of worlds, but without human cultural mediators, a simple scheduling conflict had turned into a massive diplomatic incident. Meanwhile, in the war zone itself, things were getting much worse. General Caxthal stood in the command center of his flagship, staring at casualty reports. In the past week, he had lost more soldiers than in the previous 6 months of fighting. "How are the Corvani managing these surprise attacks?" he demanded from his intelligence officer. "Unknown, General. Our surveillance networks are detecting their movements too late. The early warning systems that usually gave us hours of advance notice are providing only minutes." Caxthul felt a cold realization creeping through his mind. The early warning systems? Who maintained the sensor networks in neutral space? His intelligence officer checked his files. "Human peacekeeping forces, General. They had monitoring stations throughout the neutral zones, shared data with both sides to prevent accidental conflicts. And now? The stations went dark 4 days ago. The humans shut them down when they withdrew from the peace talks." On the other side of the war leader Velnari was having similar problems. Her energy form flickered with frustration as she studied tactical displays. Zephyrian forces were appearing in places they shouldn't be able to reach, striking Federation supply lines with impossible accuracy. "How are they getting through our defenses?" she asked her strategic planning AI. "Analysis suggests the enemy has superior intelligence about our ship movements and supply schedules," the AI responded in its emotionless voice. "Recommendation: review security protocols and communication channels." Velnari realized something disturbing. For years, both sides had been sharing information with human intelligence services. The humans claimed it was to prevent civilian casualties and protect neutral shipping. Both the Empire and Federation had assumed they were using the humans for their own advantage, getting free intelligence while giving away only basic operational data. Now she wondered exactly how much had the humans really known, and how much of their tactical success had depended on information that humans provided. The economic damage was spreading faster than anyone had expected. On the trade world of Nexus Prime, cargo ships sat empty in their docking bays. Market prices for basic goods swung wildly as supply chains collapsed. Ambassador Velthara of the Corvani Federation arrived at Nexus Prime hoping to negotiate emergency trade agreements. She was an expert in economic policy and had degrees from the finest universities in the galaxy. This should be simple, but it wasn't. The first meeting was with representatives from the Aquatic Worlds Alliance. These aliens lived underwater and breathed liquid instead of gas. The meeting room had to be specially prepared with water-filled chambers. "We appreciate your visit," the lead aquatic delegate gurgled through her translation device, "but we are confused about proper protocols. The humans always began our meetings with the ritual of flowing waters. Should we skip this ceremony?" Velthara had never heard of this ritual. "Let's focus on the trade agreements. We need agricultural products from your worlds." The aquatic delegates exchanged what seemed like worried looks. To discuss trade without the proper ceremonies would be deeply offensive to our ancestors. The humans understood this. They always showed respect for our ways. The meeting fell apart within an hour. The aquatics felt insulted, and Velthara left feeling frustrated and confused. She had similar experiences with 6 other species over the next 3 days. Each group expected cultural knowledge and diplomatic rituals that the humans had apparently mastered, but which no one else had bothered to learn. Back on Kepler Station, Chairman Thexvaler was receiving urgent messages from across the galaxy. Trade had dropped by 30% in 1 week. Minor conflicts were breaking out everywhere. The refugee camps that housed people displaced by the war were running out of supplies. He finally swallowed his pride and sent a formal message to Earth's diplomatic mission. The Galactic Council requests that humanity reconsider its withdrawal from current negotiations. Your assistance would be appreciated. The response came back within 6 hours. It was signed by Ambassador Vasquez. Humanity is currently focused on internal development projects. We wish all parties success in their endeavors. Please contact us again if you have specific humanitarian concerns. Thexvaler read the message 3 times. It was polite, professional, and completely unhelpful. Worse, he was beginning to suspect that humanity's withdrawal wasn't temporary anger. They really were done with galactic politics. As he looked out at the stars from his office window, Thexvaler wondered what else the galaxy was about to lose. 6 months after humanity withdrew from galactic politics, Ambassador Velthara sat in her private office reviewing classified intelligence reports. What she found made her energy form flicker with something close to fear. The war between the Zephyrian Empire and Corvani Federation had spread to 12 additional star systems. What started as border skirmishes had become total warfare. Both sides were using weapons they had promised never to use. Civilian casualties were mounting in numbers that hurt to think about. But the war was just part of the problem. The whole galaxy seemed to be falling apart. Velthara's aide, a young Corvani named Kelvar, materialized beside her desk.
War leader, the latest economic reports are ready. Show me, Velthara said.
Though she dreaded what she would see. The holographic display filled with charts and graphs all showing the same trend downward. Galactic trade volume has decreased by 62%. 7 major trade routes are completely closed. The Universal Banking Consortium reports massive defaults on interstellar loans. At least 40 worlds are facing food shortages. How is this possible? Velthara asked. The humans were just one small species. They couldn't have been this important. Kelvar brought up another display. I've been studying human diplomatic records. In the past 150 years, they were involved in resolving over 300 conflicts between different species. Most of these conflicts were considered minor by the major powers, so no one paid attention. Velthara studied the list. It was huge. Border disputes between farming worlds, trade disagreements between mining companies and shipping guilds, cultural misunderstandings between species with different religious beliefs, territory conflicts in asteroid belts, water rights on shared worlds. These all seem like small problems, she said. That's what I thought too, Kelvar agreed. But look at this pattern. He highlighted certain entries. Every time the humans solved a small problem, they prevented it from becoming a big problem, and they created connections between species that had never worked together before. Velthara began to understand. The humans hadn't just been solving problems. They had been building a network of relationships across the galaxy. Thousands of small agreements, trade deals, cultural exchanges, and mutual aid pacts. When humanity left, this entire network collapsed. There's something else, Kelvar said quietly. I've been analyzing the humans' negotiating methods. We always assumed they were just emotional and illogical, but I think we were wrong. He showed her a recording from a human-mediated trade dispute between the silicon-based architects and the gas-dwelling floaters. Ambassador Elena Vasquez was speaking to both sides. The architects value precision and long-term planning, Elena said in the recording. They see the floaters' flexible scheduling as disrespectful and unreliable. But the floaters value harmony and adaptation. They see the architects' rigid deadlines as aggressive and controlling. Neither side is wrong. They just have different priorities. Velthara watched Elena continue. So instead of forcing one side to change, let's create a system that honors both approaches. The architects will provide detailed project timelines with built-in flexibility periods. The floaters will commit to meeting core deadlines while having freedom to adjust methods and details. She understood both sides completely, Kelvar observed. But more than that, she understood things about each species that they didn't even know about themselves. Belthara felt a disturbing thought forming. Kelvar, have you analyzed our own species' interactions with humans? The young Corvani hesitated. Yes, war leader. The results are concerning. Show me. The display changed to show Corvani-human diplomatic exchanges. Belthara saw her own conversations with human representatives over the years. She had always been polite but dismissive, treating humans like useful tools rather than equals. The humans understood our telepathic nature better than we thought, Kelvar explained. They knew that we consider emotional thinking to be chaotic and primitive. So when they negotiated with us, they always presented logical arguments and statistical data. They made their emotional intelligence look like cold analysis. What do you mean? Watch this. Kelvar played a recording of Elena Vasquez negotiating with Corvani trade officials. Elena was presenting a proposal for refugee aid. The statistical analysis shows that providing food and medical care to displaced populations creates economic stability in surrounding regions, Elena said in the recording. This stability increases trade volume by an average of 12% and reduces security costs by 37%. I remember this meeting, Belthara said. We agreed to the proposal because the math made sense. But look at how she framed it, Kelvar pointed out. She didn't talk about suffering or moral duty. She knew those concepts would seem illogical to us, so she took an emotional decision, helping refugees because it was the right thing to do, and presented it as pure economic calculation. Belthara stared at the recording. She manipulated us. No, Kelvar said. She translated for us. She understood that we couldn't process emotional arguments, so she gave us logical reasons to make compassionate choices. The end result was the same. Refugees got help. But she made it possible for both species to work together, despite thinking in completely different ways. This revelation was disturbing on many levels. Corvani prided themselves on their superior intellect and logical thinking. To discover that humans had been managing their emotional responses while they thought they were being purely rational was deeply unsettling. How many other species were they managing this way? Belthara asked. All of them, Kelvar said simply. I found examples with every major power. They told the Zephyrians that cooperation would bring honor and glory to their empire. They convinced the Altarian Council that peace negotiations would demonstrate their wisdom and leadership. They persuaded the hegemony worlds that stability would protect their investments in territory. Each species heard exactly what they needed to hear, Belthara realized. But they were all being guided toward the same goal, working together instead of fighting. Across the galaxy, similar realizations were occurring. On the Zephyrian homeworld, General Caxithul was reviewing military intelligence reports that painted an equally disturbing picture. The humans have been providing us with strategic advice for years, his intelligence chief reported. We thought we were using their information to gain advantages over our enemies. But analysis suggests they were feeding the same quality of information to multiple sides. They were helping everyone? Caxthul's crystal plates clicked with agitation. Not helping, the intelligence chief corrected. Balancing. They made sure no one side could gain a decisive advantage. Every time one faction got too strong, the humans would find ways to level the playing field. Caxthul thought about this. They were preventing anyone from winning total victory, which prevented total wars, his aide agreed. Without decisive victories, conflicts stayed limited. Groups had to negotiate instead of fight to the death. This was perhaps the most shocking revelation of all. The humans hadn't just been maintaining peace through diplomacy. They had been practicing a form of strategic manipulation that prevented large-scale wars by making sure they were never profitable for any side. Meanwhile, the economic collapse was accelerating. On the trade hub world of Commerce Central, market prices changed by the hour as supply chains continued to break down. The Merchant Guild was losing members daily as smaller companies went bankrupt. Chairman Thexvalor called an emergency meeting of the Galactic Council. Representatives from 50 worlds gathered on Kepler Station, all looking tired and worried. The situation is critical, Thexvalor announced. Trade networks are collapsing. Regional conflicts are spreading. The refugee crisis has reached unprecedented levels. We need solutions, and we need them now. What about the humans? Asked Ambassador Morketh from the Industrial Worlds Coalition. Can't we convince them to return? Thexvalor had been dreading this question. I have sent 17 formal requests to Earth's government. The responses are always polite but firm. Humanity is pursuing internal development and has no current interest in galactic affairs. Internal development? General Caxthul's four eyes blazed. What could be more important than preventing galactic collapse? That's what concerns me, Thexviller admitted. Our intelligence services report that human space is completely peaceful and prosperous. Their economy is growing while ours shrinks. Their colonies are expanding while our worlds fight over scraps. He brought up a holographic display showing human territory. In the 6 months since they withdrew from galactic politics, the humans have established trade relationships with over 200 minor species. Worlds that we barely knew existed. They're building something new while we fight over the remains of the old system. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans weren't suffering from their withdrawal from galactic politics. They were thriving, and they were taking many of the galaxy's smaller species with them. We need to offer them something they want, suggested war leader Velnari. What do they want? Thexveller asked. They have resources, territory, trade partners, and peace. What could we possibly offer them that they don't already have? No one had an answer. For the first time in galactic history, the major powers were Leah 2 years after humanity's withdrawal. The situation in the galaxy had become desperate. Chairman Thexveller stood on the bridge of his personal diplomatic vessel as it approached Earth's solar system. Behind him, representatives from every major power in the galaxy waited nervously. This was their last hope. The war between the Zephyrians and Corvani had consumed 17 star systems. Refugee populations numbered in the billions. The galactic economy had shrunk by 60%. Entire civilizations were on the edge of collapse. Piracy and lawlessness had spread to areas that had been peaceful for centuries. Incoming, transmission from Earth traffic control, reported the ship's communication officer. A human voice filled the bridge, speaking in the calm, professional tone that Thexveller remembered from negotiations years ago. Diplomatic Vessel Harmony's voice. You are cleared for approach to Earth Station Alpha. Please maintain designated flight path and prepare for standard customs inspection. Standard customs inspection? General Caxthul's crystal plates clicked with indignation. We are representatives of galactic powers. This is insulting. Actually, said Ambassador Velthara quietly, it's fair. We're entering their territory. They have every right to inspect us. The inspection was polite but thorough. Human security officers checked their ship for weapons and recording devices with professional efficiency. No one was rude or hostile, but there was a clear message. This was human space now, and visitors followed human rules. Earth Station Alpha was impressive. The massive structure orbited Earth like a metallic moon, gleaming with new construction. Ships from dozens of different species came and went, all flying under the banner of something called the Cooperative Worlds Alliance. Secretary General Chen Wei met them in a conference room with windows overlooking the blue-green surface of Earth. She was a small, elderly human woman with gray hair and kind eyes. Her simple black suit was a sharp contrast to the elaborate ceremonial uniforms worn by the alien delegates. Welcome to Earth, she said in flawless galactic standard. I understand you wanted to discuss the current situation in the galaxy. Chairman Thexveller cleared his throat nervously. Secretary General Chen, we come to you in a spirit of partnership. The galaxy faces unprecedented challenges, and we believe humanity's expertise could be valuable in addressing them. Chen Wei smiled politely. That's very kind of you to say, but as I've mentioned in my previous communications, humanity is quite content with our current focus on internal development and regional cooperation. Regional cooperation? War Leader Velnari's energy form flickered. We have intelligence reports of over 200 species working with humans. This goes far beyond regional cooperation. 237, actually, Chen Wei corrected gently, though we prefer to think of it as a community of friends rather than a formal alliance. We help each other with trade, technology sharing, cultural exchange, and mutual security. It's been quite successful. General Caxthul leaned forward aggressively. Secretary General, the galaxy is burning. Billions are suffering. Your people have the skills to help end this crisis. Do you feel no responsibility? Chen Wei's expression remained calm. General, with respect, the current crisis began when galactic leaders decided that human contributions were unwelcome. We were told quite clearly that our ideas were naive and our involvement was not wanted. We simply honored that request. We may have been hasty, Thexveller admitted. Perhaps we underestimated humanity's capabilities. Perhaps, Chen Wei agreed. But the galaxy made its choice. We've made ours. We're building something new with species who value cooperation over domination, understanding over superiority, and partnership over control. Ambassador Velthara spoke up. We're prepared to offer significant concessions. permanent seats on the Galactic Council for Human Representatives, expanded territorial rights, formal recognition as a senior species. That's generous, Chenwei said, but we're not interested in joining the old system. We've discovered that we prefer building new systems that work better for everyone involved. Thex Valor felt desperation creeping into his voice. Secretary General, surely there must be something we can offer. What do humans want? Chenwei was quiet for a long moment, looking out at Earth through the window. What we wanted was respect. What we wanted was to be treated as equals rather than useful servants. What we wanted was for our ideas to be considered rather than dismissed. What we wanted was partnership rather than patronage. You have that now, Belnari said quickly. We understand humanity's value. We're willing to treat you as equals. Are you? Chenwei asked. Or do you need us now because your systems are failing? There's a difference between partnership and desperation. The alien delegates exchanged uncomfortable looks. Chenwei was right, and they all knew it. They weren't here because they respected humanity. They were here because they needed humanity's help to save themselves. Let me show you something, Chenwei said. She activated a holographic display that showed star maps of human space in the surrounding regions. This is what we've built in the past 2 years. The Cooperative Worlds Alliance includes species from every major galactic region. We have agricultural worlds feeding industrial worlds. We have research stations sharing discoveries freely. We have security patrols protecting trade routes. We have cultural exchange programs that celebrate diversity, rather than demanding conformity. The display zoomed in on specific examples. The Delton Agricultural Consortium now feeds 47 worlds instead of 3. The silicon-based architects are building incredible structures throughout the Alliance. The aquatic worlds have become major centers for biotechnology research. Species that the old powers ignored or dismissed are thriving. General Caxthal studied the display with his 4 eyes. This is impressive. But it's still just a collection of minor powers. You lack the military strength to maintain order in the galaxy. Chenwei smiled. General, we haven't had a single war in Alliance space in 2 years. Crime rates are at historic lows. Trade disputes are resolved through mediation rather than threats. We don't maintain order through military strength. We maintain order through mutual benefit and respect. That's idealistic nonsense, Caxthul protested. Peace requires strength. Order requires authority, does it? Chenwei asked. How's that working out for the major powers right now? The question hung in the air. The answer was obvious to everyone in the room. Ambassador Velthera tried a different approach. Secretary General, we understand that the major powers made mistakes. But surely you won't let innocent civilians suffer because of our errors. The refugee crisis alone affects billions of beings. You're absolutely right, Chenwei said. That's why the Cooperative Worlds Alliance provides humanitarian aid to all refugee populations, regardless of their species or political affiliation. Medical supplies, food, temporary housing and transportation to safe areas. No politics, no conditions, just help for people who need it. Thexveller felt a cold realization settling over him. You're already solving the humanitarian crisis. Without us. We're helping as much as we can, Chenwei confirmed. But we're not interested in fixing the political problems that created the crisis in the first place. Those problems belong to the governments that created them. But you could fix them, Velnari pressed. Your people have the skills. Yes, we could, Chenwei agreed. Just like we fixed hundreds of smaller problems over the past century and a half. But every time we solved a crisis, the major powers took credit and then ignored our advice for preventing the next crisis. We got tired of putting bandages on problems that could be prevented with better leadership. General Caxithul's plates clicked with frustration. So you'll just watch the galaxy burn? We'll watch the old galaxy burn, Chenwei corrected. We're building a new one, and it's working better than the old one ever did. The meeting continued for 3 more hours, but the outcome never changed. The humans were polite, professional, and completely unmoved. They had found something better than the old galactic order, and they saw no reason to go back. As the alien delegates prepared to leave, Thex Valor made one last attempt. Secretary General, in all your years of studying galactic politics, have you ever seen a situation this desperate? Chenwei considered the question carefully. Chairman, I've seen many desperate situations, but this isn't just desperation. This is what happens when civilizations build systems based on dominance instead of cooperation. When they value age over wisdom, when they confuse power with leadership. And the solution? The solution is what we're already doing. Building something better with people who want to build rather than conquer. You're welcome to join us when you're ready to be partners instead of rulers. As their ship left Earth's solar system, The alien delegates sat in stunned silence. They had come hoping to convince humanity to save the old galactic order. Instead, they had discovered that humanity was building a replacement that worked better without them. The question now was whether the old powers could learn to be part of something new, or whether they would cling to their failing systems until they destroyed everything they had built. 5 years after humanity's withdrawal from galactic politics, the transformation was complete. The old galaxy was gone, replaced by something entirely different. Ambassador Elena Vasquez, now Secretary of Interspecies Relations for the Cooperative Worlds Alliance, stood on the observation deck of New Harmony Station, watching the future take shape. Below her, representatives from over 400 different species worked together on projects that would have been impossible under the old system. Zephyrian engineers shared crystal growing techniques with Corvani energy specialists. Deltan farmers taught sustainable agriculture to former Warworld colonists. Aquatic Worlds biotechnology researchers collaborated with silicon-based architects to create living buildings that cleaned the air while housing millions. The transformation hadn't happened overnight. For 3 years after humanity's withdrawal, the old galactic powers had struggled to maintain their failing systems. The Zephyrian Empire had fragmented into dozens of city-states that spent more time fighting each other than anyone else. The Corvani Federation barely controlled their core worlds, their rigid logic unable to adapt to rapid change. The Altarian Council had become a collection of elderly politicians arguing about past glories while their world slipped into poverty and chaos. Meanwhile, the Cooperative Worlds Alliance had grown steadily. What started as trade relationships between humans and minor species had evolved into something unprecedented, a true galactic community based on mutual respect and shared benefit rather than dominance and control. Elena's thoughts were interrupted by her aide, Commander Sarah Park, a young human officer who had joined the diplomatic corps after the alliance was formed. Secretary Vasquez, Chairman Thexvalor is here for his appointment. Elena turned from the window. Thank you, Sarah. Please show him in. The being who entered the room was barely recognizable as the proud galactic leader who had dismissed humanity 5 years ago. Thexvalor's green skin had turned pale and gray. His 3 arms moved slowly as if every gesture caused pain. His people were starving, his government was bankrupt, and his homeworld faced environmental collapse due to industrial warfare. Secretary Vasquez, he said quietly, thank you for seeing me. Please sit down. Elena gestured to a comfortable chair. Can I offer you anything? Water? Food? Yes, actually. It has been a difficult journey. Elena signaled to Sarah, who quickly brought a tray of food and drink. As Thexvalor ate, Elena noticed how thin he had become. The proud chairman was now a desperate refugee leader begging for help. I suppose you know why I'm here, Thexvalor said after finishing his meal. I can guess, Elena replied, but tell me yourself. Thexvalor looked out the window at the thriving station around them. My world is dying, Secretary. The industrial wars poisoned our atmosphere. Our crops are failing. Our young people are leaving for alliance worlds where they can actually build careers and families. I am the leader of a civilization in collapse. I'm sorry to hear that, Elena said, and she genuinely was. What can the alliance do to help? I'm not sure I have the right to ask for help, Thexvalor admitted. Not after how my people treated humanity, not after the things I said to you personally. Elena was quiet for a moment. Chairman, do you remember what you said to me at Kepler Station 5 years ago? Every word, Thexvalor said with shame. I called your ideas naive. I said your species was too young and primitive to understand complex galactic politics. I treated you like a child who needed to stay quiet while the adults made important decisions. You did, Elena agreed. And do you know what the worst part was? It wasn't the insults. It was the assumption that because humans were newer to galactic civilization, we had nothing valuable to contribute. You were right, Thexvalor said, about everything. Your peace proposal from 5 years ago, the one we dismissed. I've read it many times since then. It would have prevented the wars, saved the trade networks, and avoided the humanitarian crisis. But we were too proud to listen. Elena stood up and walked to a wall display showing the current state of the galaxy. Half the map was colored green, representing Alliance space. The other half was a patchwork of red conflict zones and yellow unstable regions. The tragedy isn't that you rejected our ideas, Elena said. The tragedy is that you only recognize their value when your own systems failed. That's not partnership, that's desperation. I know, Thexvalor said, but I'm here anyway because desperate times require desperate measures. My people need food, medical supplies, and refugee assistance. The Alliance has ships, resources, and the organizational ability to help. I'm begging you to help us, not because we deserve it, but because millions of innocent people will die if you don't." Elena turned back to face him. "Chairman, the Alliance has been providing humanitarian aid to your worlds for 3 years. Medical supplies, food shipments, refugee transport to safe zones. We've never stopped helping, despite everything that happened." Thexivler stared at her in shock. "What? I wasn't aware." "No, you weren't," Elena said gently, "because we didn't ask for publicity or gratitude. We helped because it was the right thing to do, not because we wanted recognition. That's the difference between the old galaxy and the new one." Sarah Parks stepped forward with a data tablet. "Secretary, the latest humanitarian reports show that Alliance aid programs have assisted over 40 million refugees from the conflict zones. Medical teams have treated more than 12 million patients. Food programs have prevented famine on 67 worlds." Elena took the tablet and showed it to Thexvaler. "We never stopped caring about the people caught in these conflicts. We just stopped trying to save governments that refuse to learn from their mistakes." Tears were running down Thexvaler's face. "All this time you were helping us while we blamed you for our problems." "We were helping everyone," Elena corrected. "Zephyrian refugees, Corvani civilians, displaced populations from the industrial worlds. Suffering has no nationality. Need has no political affiliation." Thexvaler wiped his eyes. "What do you want in return? Territory? Resources? Political concessions?" "Nothing," Elena said simply. "Humanitarian aid isn't a business transaction. It's what civilized beings do for each other. But surely there's something—" Elena sat down across from him. "There is one thing, actually. But it's not something you can give us. It's something you have to give to yourselves." "What do you mean?" "Chairman, your people are welcome to join the Alliance anytime they want. Not as conquered subjects or junior partners, but as equal members. But that means accepting that age doesn't grant automatic authority. It means treating younger species as equals rather than students. It means building systems that benefit everyone instead of maintaining power structures that benefit only the powerful." Thexvaler considered this. "Many of my people would find that difficult. We have ruled this part of the galaxy for thousands of years." "And how has that worked out?" Elena asked gently. The question hung in the air. Both of them knew the answer. "If we joined the Alliance," Thexvaler asked slowly, "would we have to give up our independence? Our culture? Our identity? Look around you." Elena gestured to the window showing the diverse activities on the station. "Do any of these species look like they've given up their identities? The Deltans still practice their agricultural rituals. The aquatic worlds still live underwater. The silicon-based architects still think in geometric patterns. Diversity isn't a problem to be solved. It's a resource to be celebrated." Over the next hour, Elena explained how the Alliance worked. There was no central authority forcing uniform policies. Instead, there were networks of cooperation that species could join voluntarily, trade networks that benefited everyone involved, research collaborations that shared knowledge freely, security agreements that protected member worlds without requiring them to contribute to aggressive wars. "It sounds almost too good to be true," Thexvaler said. "It's not perfect," Elena admitted. "We have disagreements and problems like any community, but we solve them through discussion and compromise rather than threats and ultimatums. And when someone makes a mistake, we focus on fixing the problem rather than assigning blame." As their meeting concluded, Thexvaler stood to leave. At the door he paused and looked back at Elena. "Secretary Vasquez, I have one more question. When my people dismissed humanity all those years ago, did you plan this? Did you know that withdrawing would lead to the collapse of the old system?" Elena smiled. "Chairman, we hoped that the major powers would learn to value cooperation over dominance. We hoped they would recognize that wisdom comes from experience, not just age. We hoped they would understand that strength comes from unity, not control. But you prepared for the possibility that we wouldn't learn? We prepared to build something better with anyone who wanted to build rather than rule. It turned out that was a lot of species. And now?" Elena looked out at the thriving station around them, where beings from hundreds of worlds worked together on projects that previous generations had thought impossible. "Now we have what we always wanted. A galaxy where different species respect each other, where problems are solved through cooperation rather than force, where everyone has a voice regardless of how old their civilization is or how powerful their military."